Hi, everyone. Someone out there, say something to me. All right, good. Hope everyone's having a great possible, and thank you for joining us for this discussion on how contextual targeting is reshaping engagement. Before we jump into the discussion, let's just do some introductions. And so, Liane, I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Liane Nadeau, and I'm head of media investment at Digitas. I'm Kristy Quagliariello. I am the VP of Programmatic at Klick Health.
And I'm Kerel Cooper, CMO at GumGum. So I want to start with really focusing on attention and the attention economy, if you will. As you both know, it is very difficult, challenging, competing for everyone's attention these days. And if you think about it from that perspective, the consumers want to be spoken to in a way that is authentic without feeling there's a level of intrusion that's there as well too, right? So for both of you, the first question I have is, when you think about messaging, ad messaging, how do you think about it with ad messaging surrounding content that enhances recall and helps with action from a consumer perspective? And Liane, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually read an article yesterday on my flight here to Possible about the catch-22 that we're in as an industry right now. It's exactly what you said. It's this combination of needing to fulfill relevance and personalization while avoiding the creep factor that we're always kind of trying to tiptoe.
Right.
And I think what's really interesting about kind of the opportunity we have now is to create more personalized experiences at scale in a way that we've actually been trying to do for probably about the past decade. But the advent of technology like deep learning, like AI is enabling. So I have been talking a little bit about this today where, AI isn't necessarily a new strategy, but in fact, an enabler of the strategies we've been trying to achieve for some time now. So as brands think about kind of balancing those two things, I think leveraging the power of relevance and making sure that you're showing up to the right audiences in the way they want to be spoken to, while ensuring you're respecting privacy and making sure that you're showing up in a way that is permissioned.
Gotcha.
And that's where I think contextual really plays nicely, is the ability to know someone based on what they're consuming versus a cookie that they may have set, 6 months ago.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Liane. I think it's like that passive experience that, we're not being these creepy cookie followers. And I actually had an interesting personal experience when I was preparing to come to Miami. I was like looking for, summer clothes, doing researching on fashion sites and stuff like that, and got an ad for this bikini. And put it in my cart, didn't end up buying it. I'm here on Sunday and I see this girl wearing a bikini. And I was like, oh, I really like your bikini. And we start chatting and she's like, yeah, I got an ad for it too. So, I mean, it's like that relevance to me, to her, and we both had that same experience where it influenced her to purchase it.
Right.
I will probably purchase it.
There you go. Yeah. And I think what's important there from a brand perspective is you're going to remember who that brand was, right?
Exactly.
Because they created a great digital experience for you.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And it was relevant and timely.
Right. Liane, you brought up AI, right? And obviously it's a huge topic in our industry these days, even though AI has been around for a very long time. The way I think about AI and the way we think about it at GumGum is AI and the advancements in technology have helped move contextual advertising beyond just looking at keywords and looking at the URL, right? Because of the ability to scan the entire page, scan audio, scan video, to put things in its proper context, right? And by doing that, again, I think you create an environment and an experience for the consumer that they enjoy. So the question I have for you and for both of you is, can you share a case study or maybe a recent example of a great sort of experience either that you've had yourself or a brand that you represent has had?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you said about contextual is spot on, where it's an enabler. AI is making it more sophisticated, but this idea of right person, right place, right time, right message is is not a new one.
Right.
And so with the advent of contextual and the ability to do that at scale, I think we've seen a lot of great use cases. As I mentioned before, we're not just looking at contextual for what are the keywords on a page. So it's a recipe ad and therefore put a food and ad in there. Instead, it's more about thinking, what is that full picture for that consumer? What's the sentiment? What is the mindset they're in when they're consuming that content? And one of the best examples I would say is some recent work we've done with the Hershey brands and Reese's. And it's really not just saying, we're selling chocolate and peanut butter, go find some chocolate and peanut butter articles to place our ads in. It's what does the audience we're trying to reach care about? And we know they care about sports. How are we identifying the moments at which they're having those relationships with sports figures, and really inserting the brand into, again, context, but not context in maybe the legacy sense of it has to match exactly what category the brand is in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think for us, I don't have a specific example, but I think for us being in the healthcare space, a lot of the targeting that we start with is like a patient modeled audience and really like data-driven targeting. And that can only go so far. People are so much more than like their diagnosis, and that targeting is only reaching them at the point of diagnosis. It's not reaching them prior to. So I think contextual has been really powerful for us to really get that incremental reach and reach people before a diagnosis, when they're in that researching phase, when they're looking at content like, I have a sunburn, like what should I do, really engaging with them before that moment.
Okay, gotcha. And then, Kristy, I want to stay with you because I want to stay on a point about contextual, but then talk about contextual plus video, right? Video obviously has grown over the years in our space. I think it's a key part to what brands are doing from a marketing perspective. In a recent survey that we did at GumGum, we know that 80% of consumers engage with more contextually aligned video ads as well too. And so as you think about sort of planning, activation, and even performance, right? Where does video fit into sort of, overall strategy for you?
Yeah, I think video is an extremely important part of strategy because it extends your brand story. Like anyone can buy banners and that's not cutting through the clutter. So really being able to tell a client's story through video, and I think also with the power of AI to make that video scalable. So in the past, like you've had like one video, it's running against your demo audience and that's it. I think now we have this ability to use AI and creative resources and contextual targeting to reach niche audiences and ensure that the message for one person who's a male 25 living in an urban area is different from a male who's 75 living in a very rural area. So I think it's like super important to really marry the two, the contextual and like the visual storytelling of video.
Gotcha. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think actually video is the greatest untapped potential for contextual. So we started, as you said, Kristy, in this place of display. Native advertising exploded. GumGum even originated, in image ads. And so thinking about how we take that to a place of video is challenging because a video is longer. Generally, it's harder to read. We didn't have the technology to be able to understand what the context of a certain video was. And I think understanding, because there's so much going on in a video, what is the scale? If you are going really niche and saying, I'm selling pet products, I want to be in pet videos, sure, that's one place to start. But what we are seeing is more sophisticated brands be able to do is understand the sentiment they're hoping to align with and think about at scale how they align to a certain sentiment in videos. So that might be empowerment, that might be fear, that might be joy, that might be happiness. How are we identifying the moments where we want to reach people, matching that with the messaging, and then using that as a layer by which we go in and explore the right context in video. It's something we're doing quite a bit with GumGum on, and excited to keep furthering that.
Right. Because even if you take that a level deeper, right, going back to your example, Kristy, of the male age 25, right, even within that demo, if you will, there are going to be different interests and likes as well too, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I also think like the power of video and where we're at now is we can have a lot more frictionless experiences when you think about QR codes and overlays and pause ads and all these creative things that never existed before.
Gotcha. Liane, you brought up privacy a little earlier, right? Again, to my point about consumers definitely don't want to be tracked. They've made that loud and clear, right? So how do you think about when you're strategizing with brands, how do you think about balancing personalization and privacy within an ad experience or a digital experience as well too?
Yeah, one of the things that we're pushing for in the industry is more transparency into how it's all done. I think one of the things that is our greatest challenge is what happens behind walled gardens. Won't call any out specifically, but we know, we're having a conversation about a brand and then all of a sudden you see it in your feed. And I think there is that level of creep factor that to some extent isn't even controllable by the brand. So I think one of the things that we all can do to better meet the consumer and what they're looking for from a privacy perspective is ask those questions of the avenues, of the inventory, of the black boxes out there where we don't necessarily have that level of control. When we do have that level of control, I think it's really, we're in a place where, yes, consumers don't want to be tracked. They don't want their data taken and not have permissions. But if collected right, they want that bikini ad because they actually know that that's going to be helpful to them. That's something they're looking for. Personally, if I'm looking for, a dress for my kid, I go and search for one. I click on it simply so I can go to my Instagram feed and see what's been curated for me. So I think there is still a lot of education to be done to make consumers understand what is happening.
Right.
But also as an industry, we need to really push for transparency and consent, which was a hot topic a couple of years ago and I think has unfortunately fallen off in terms of industry conferences like this, but something that's going to keep coming back and rearing its head.
Right.
Yeah, and for us in the healthcare industry, privacy is obviously of utmost importance. And every month there's like new state regulations with can't target HCPs, can't target patients. So we really need to be careful of the partners that we are working with and the audiences that we are creating. So I think contextual really helps us in that way. And we're being like that passive experience. And again, like reaching people before they're at a certain state.
Right.
And I think that's like super important to us, just making sure that that relevance is there and not being like the creepy cookie.
Yeah. Relevance and a great experience, right? Is what's important for the end consumer. Okay. One last question. Fun question I want to end with. Kristy, I'll ask you first. What's a memorable ad you saw growing up that you were emotionally connected to and why?
Okay, this is going to be very niche, but as soon as you ask this question, the most memorable ad, and I see my friend Cassidy there and she's Canadian, so she might know this. Like in the 90s, so I'm Canadian, and they have these like Canadian heritage moments, and they were these very cheesy ads that would celebrate inventions in Canada. There was like a basketball one, but there was one about this physician that he had a cure to strokes or something like that, and you just see the woman pop up and she's like, "Doctor, I smell burnt toast." And it's because burnt toast is a, like when people have a stroke, that's what it smells like. Yes, and it's a very memorable ad. Cass, do you remember that? Yes, you can Google it.
Yeah.
I like that. I think for me, the number one ad that comes to mind when you mentioned that was a Sprite ad from the early 90s. I don't have an exact date, but a Sprite ad that was all around holiday with polar bears and it was really, it resonated for me because my mom back in the 90s actually used to record Christmas movies on VHS. So for the rest of my childhood, that's how we watched them, was pop the VHS in and it included all the ads. And for me, that ad just always reminded me of like a nostalgic Christmas and it kind of got me in the mood for the season. And ironically, not intentionally, I was thinking about it earlier, it was contextually aligned. So it was a Christmas ad for a Christmas movie and there was really something about that just made it feel like home.
Yeah. Well, a contextually aligned ad, I think we will...
In the 90s.
In the 90s. In the 90s. So I think we will end on that point. Liane, Kristy, thank you for joining us and taking some time today. And thank you for your partnership as well, too.
Thank you.
All right.